Welcome, listeners and viewers, to another show on Rising Above Shadows of Abuse, RASA. I'm your host, Grace Opa. How does domestic abuse impact victims, and what is the impact on the children or next generation as well? Can you give examples, please?
Yes. So how it impacts on victim, as I've said earlier, so it's their mental health well-being, their psychological well-being, their emotional well-being. They are not going to be able to function and thrive like a woman who is not exposed to domestic abuse. So it's not only their mental health, their ability to function, their ability to parent effectively. And when I'm talking about parenting and having parenting capacity, it's not just about giving the children food and making sure they're well clothed, they go to school. So those are basic stuff that parents will do for their children. When I'm saying basic, I'm not minimizing what a parent will do for their children. However, what is also as important is the emotional well-being of their children. So being able to provide emotional warmth. So a child comes back from school, are you available emotionally to ask how their day was at school? Are you able to ask, if maybe something was bothering them? Do they see that you're emotionally available to even be able to ask you, about something that may be bothering them? So that's also how domestic abuse will impact on a non-abusing parent to function, to parent effectually. So it's not about just the physical provision, but we're talking about the psychological provision, the emotional provision of your child, making sure you're available, and also and for younger children who's perhaps say between 0 to 5, they are solely dependent on their primary caregiver, so the non-abusing parents, to make sure that they're clothed, they cry, they need attention, they want somebody to be attuned to their needs and be responsive. They want somebody to be able to pick up their cues. So, for example, they are feeling uncomfortable. You should be able to tell that, oh, my child is uncomfortable. Maybe it's too hot, and then you provide the comfort. And your a parent being available also will help a young child, to regulate their emotion. However, a parent who has been exposed to domestic abuse will not be consistently available emotionally to be able to pick up on all the skill. And a 0 to 19 a child who needs their parent to be available there, and in order for them for their neurodevelopment to continue to grow, that will be stunted. So it's not only the mom, the non-abusing parent, that domestic abuse is impacting, it also impacts on the child as well. The ability to grow and thrive, the ability to thrive in a safe and stable environment where you're not sure, is it going to be chaotic today? Are we going to have, a peaceful day? Is that going to criticize mom? Will there be a lot of shouting where the child cannot explore play? Play and stimulation. They explore the environment. They laugh. They giggle. So all that would be absent in an environment, in a family home where abuse is taking place. So it's not only about the victim, and also the children as well. And even in the definition of domestic abuse that was legalized in April of 2021, children are recognized in their own right as victims of domestic abuse. So whether they hear of abuse taking place, so the children could be in their bedroom or in the living room, and mom and dad, they're shouting in their room, or in a room, they are not in the same space, that child is still affected. So whether they see or they hear, or it could be the aftermath of domestic abuse, so the child might not even be present at home, but because the non-abusing parent has just been through a difficult time with their dad, and she has been left crying, she's not going to be automatically switched off and then be available to that baby or to that child. So it affects the children as well as the parent, and the child. And some children, I would use the word that they can be resilient in this, not that it's not affecting them, but they can still carry on and function. So you may see a child who has been growing up in a household where abuse occurs, and they're still able to perform, academically well. It does not mean that everything is all well. It's just that they've just chosen to focus on that. But then you might see another child who will be so distracted, not being able to concentrate. The attention span is very, very low. Then they wear this long face, or they're sad, they're worried for their mom, they're worried that, oh, why is they at school, maybe dad is hitting mom. So it's all about that. It affects how they function, even amongst their peer as well. How they function, how they relate to others, because of what is happening in their family home. So yes, the parent, the non-abusing parent, as well as the children. And also some children, it also depends on their age, who perhaps may have been potty trained, might then present with a regressive behavior because of what they're experiencing. Some might start fighting, and some, because of what they've witnessed at home, may want to use violence to, in their relationship. They might want to use violence to resolve conflicts. And some children, where this abuse has not been disrupted and the children remain in that environment, some of them may then perpetrate domestic abuse in their relationship. Some who have teenage who are involved in teenage relationship might use violence in those relationships, and some might also then become victims in their relationship because they have seen how their mom had been, stayed in the relationship. They might feel that, oh, it's okay, so they also will accept abuse in their own relationship rather than challenging it. So that's how it can affect the victim as well as the children. Of course, the children in different age groups. So you have the 0 to 9, 0 to 5, who are solely dependent on their children, on their parent. So that neurodevelopment that should have been taking place naturally, because there's warmth from mom, there's healthy relationship, healthy, there's a bond, a healthy attachment, allowing the neurodevelopment to progress naturally. That will be altered as a result of domestic abuse. So you have from 0 to 5, then you have 5 to when to 18. So at different stages, domestic abuse can affect a child. And it's just, if they then continue in that environment, that nothing changes, the continuous exposure, it can actually damage a child.
Mm. I remember one of my daughters used to, when I started arguing with their dad, she
Mm,
used to go to a corner and curl
mm,
into a ball and put her hands around her. But when their dad left,
yeah.
she, she stopped that. So
Okay.
to these arguments do
Mm.
impact negatively on the children.
Oh yeah, definitely it does. So then there's impact on the children, which we've talked about, and it affects them differently depending on their age. What is also crucial is that 0 to 5, that neurodevelopment, which they help a parent who has that good capacity to parent will be able to regulate their feelings, their emotion, help with that neurodevelopment. However, where they are not available, consistently available, it would affect that development. And domestic abuse also affects the uterus. In the utero, some women have been attacked directly on their stomach, affecting the woman. Some, as a result of the attack, have led to them bleeding and they've lost the pregnancy, had a miscarriage as a result. And whilst they are also in the womb, where domestic abuse is occurring, the fight and flight, the mode. Say, for example, you see a lion now, you're not just going to be sitting there. You want to escape for your life. So that toxicity that is built up where abuse is taking place, the cortisone, the high level of cortisone to regulate what is happening around, because that cortisone is what makes you to do your fight or flight. Are you going to fight, or you're going to move away from the danger? So
Or
when
freeze,
domestic, sorry.
I said, or freeze or foam.
Yeah. So when that domestic abuse, so then the body produces a lot of cortisone, and the baby in the womb getting that high cortisone would affect their brain development. So yeah, it so actually affects from the womb as well, the baby unborn, an unborn child. So it's not healthy in whatever shape or form. Domestic abuse is not healthy for an unborn child, a child who is already a growing child, a toddler. Toddler is also a growing child, a school age child, a teenage child. At whatever stage, domestic abuse, it's not healthy at all. It's detrimental to their health, their physical health, their emotional health, their psychological well-being, and also how they function and interact in their relationship, their peer group, their friendship group, and also how they respond to stress. Or some might feel that they have to use violence, but no, that is not the way to resolve stress or conflicts.
That leads me to this question about a lack of therapeutic services for children
Mm.
who experienced domestic abuse in their homes. What can be done in relations to this? What can be done, and what are the
Mm.
recommendations, if you have any?
So it's one of my passion, because the area I work in, we still have not got an established service and support to support the women and their children, which I feel is it's extremely extreme. I cannot stress it enough. It's important that such services are in place. I mean, we have some areas in the parts of the country where those services are readily available, and sometimes people do not even take up the services. So it's, even though, yeah, it had not been, it's still not in existence, but we're having conversation, we're having ongoing talk about how this service will be implemented in the area I work in. So when it was not there, I remembered I would speak to my line manager about it, and it was just ongoing. And then she was also able to escalate it, talk about it, to where it would be heard, and something will be done, because there's really no point sharing one's passion where we would all hear it and then nothing is done. So she was able to take it forward, and it was ongoing. But so finally, they have heard now, and there is ongoing talk and discussion about it. Hopefully, a service will be implemented so that children who have fled domestic abuse, they can have these resources as well as their parents. Like I said to you, some of the mom do not even have the right word to start to talk to their child or children about what they've experienced. They just feel that, well, we're in a new place now, we might as well we get on with what we have got. But what's happened in the past? So if we see an abusive relationship, are we going to be able to recognize it? What about all the feeling that were going on in the child's or the children's head, where they were in that environment, where some of them have even had to look after their younger one to make sure everything was safe, where there was disturbance and chaos going on. How then do you speak to the child in a language that they would understand? So that's where the therapeutic services, that's
Or intervention.
where you would help, or intervention will help, because you definitely need it. Because that child, you need to let the child know that using violence, that's not the way to resolve conflict. You don't want them to have because of what they've been exposed to learn that as a behavior, and then when it's time when they're in their relationship, they are now using violence because it had not been corrected. So it is important that all these services are in place. So hopefully I hope to see that implemented. But yeah, so it was just, when it was not there, it was just talking about it, kept talking about it, raising it with my line manager, and yeah, so something is being done about it as I speak. Yeah.
Okay. Kindly detail some mental health issues such victims suffer from.
So there are various issues that can ensue as a result of someone experiencing domestic abuse. Say, for example, a victim of domestic abuse already have existing mental health. So it could be a mental health disorder, it could be emotional, personality disorder. So depending on what disorder that may already be in existence, domestic abuse will exacerbate that condition. However, if there is no mental health disorder at all, domestic abuse can actually, give an onset of mental health disorder. So, for example, fear and anxiety can develop as a result of domestic abuse. Stress and fear can also lead to anxiety. And when we talk about anxiety, say for example, you're going for an exam or interview, you can have anxiety towards it. It's because of what it entails, sitting in front of people, having to perform and all that. So that's a normal anxiety. But for someone who is living in a household where there is domestic abuse, is that continuous anxiety where they are fearful, where they are not able to function like a normal adult, to be able to think, and come up with a decision and do things for themselves.
So I know you've talked about supporting victims in refuge. So how do you support them?
So it's plugging them into services that will be able to, services like the counseling services. Initially, the initial support from a health visitor is to integrate them into their community. Some of them may not have been to London before. The area will be very new to them anyway, because it's never safe to rehouse a victim where they're fleeing domestic abuse. So say for example they were living in one part of in a county, sorry, or in a county, and then you move them from one area just to another, or from one street to another. That's not going to make them safe. So you have to move them away from a place where it's deemed to be safe. And the refuge organization, they are very good in ensuring that wherever they move them onto is safe enough for them. So that place definitely where they move on to will be very new to them. So it's integrating them into the community, into the resources that is available to them. They register with the GP, the children get their immunization completed, and then the normal assessment of the child depending on their age, and also encourage the mom to access the counseling services. Some initially might not feel that it is necessary, that they have left the abusive situation and they are fine. But you and I know that it's not always fine. They still need to look into what had happened in the past in order to effectively move forward, and even to have dialogue with their child or their children, depending on their age, about what had happened. Some of the children still want to have contact with their dad. Some still, are missing their friends at their previous schools. So it's having that dialogue with the children. And many of the moms, they are not equipped to do this. They just feel that, well, we've left that situation, we're just carrying on with our life. But even, building relationship, even their relationship, the mom's relationship and the child or with her children, that also we need rebuilding. It will need them also to recover from the past trauma. So both mom and their children, we definitely need support. So where in my own organization, where I have provided the initial support for them, but then they need further services, they would then be referred on to other services. And also talking to them about empowerment, rebuilding their life. What do they now want to do? Do they want to train? Do they still want to educate themselves? Do they want to learn English? So it depends on what they want right now, and some of them might not even know what they want. So it's giving them the option, letting them know what is available, to them in the area where they are at. So those are some of the supports that I would provide. And like I said, where my own services or my own organization is not cannot even provide everything. So it will mean signposting them to other services that will be able to support them. And even initially when they say no to counseling services, I still broach the subject again with them to encourage them to see the need why they have to see why they have to rebuild their relationship with their children, to see why it's important to go through that recovery process. That yes, something traumatic had happened in their life as well as their children. They now need to recover from it and have the right tools moving forward with their lives.
Thank you. In terms of empowerment, I know that for domestic abuse survivors or victims, that there might be two sets. We have those who are migrants, we have those who are legally uh, they are
Mm,
residents in the country, that are legally
yeah.
resident in the country. How
Mm.
do
So,
you,
so how this works? So some families or some women who have come into the country on spousal visa, when they flee domestic abuse and they have to then refer to the DD, it's called destitute domestic violence, where they can apply to be able to remain in the country and not use the spousal visa, because once they apply for that, the spousal visa application gets cancelled anyway. So this gives them just couple of, I think it's couple of months to remain in the country. So they are usually supported by their refuge workers. So application is made to the home office that these clients is fleeing domestic abuse. There's something I can't remember how many weeks now that they would be able to at least be legal in the country. Then they apply for the DDV, which is destitute domestic violence, which gives them an indefinite leave to remain in the country. And it's for, if I'm correct, I think it's for 12 months, 12 or 27 months, and that can be renewed. So with that support, they are not afraid that, oh, they will face deportation, because their home office is made in such a way that after they fled domestic abuse, they will not have to face deportation, which is what the abuser have been threatening them with. That, oh, if you leave this relationship, you will be deported. And of course, many of them don't want to be deported and bring to them, they see that they'll bring in shame to their family. So once they flee domestic abuse and the spousal visa, that entitlement is cancelled, an application is made to the Home Office, they can still remain legal in the country while they now apply for the indefinite leave to remain in the country. However, we have some women who do not have leave to remain in the country anyway, whether and they are not, so meaning that they are not on spousal visa. So those are the migrant women. When the definition for domestic abuse was going to, before it was going to be enacted, there were dialogue between organizations. There were lobbying that took place. There was lobbying that took place as well, lobbying the government in order to protect these women who do not have, who are not legal in the country. However, they are also experiencing domestic abuse, not to face deportation. So these women do not have recourse to public fund. Some local authority can still assist them and give them help where they've got children. However, those without children, they may have to face deportation. However, currently there have been some talk, I believe, in the House of Commons or House of Lords, that these women will be protected. So when they go to the police to report abuse that they're going through, social care or even public services will not be able to report them to immigration enforcement agency, and they would be able to receive the right support, and that should be enacted, that hopefully will be enacted into law, so that these women will be protected in the law or within the law when whenever that's done. So that is positive in my view. Not only those with children, but single women experiencing domestic abuse who do not have a legal status in the country. Having said that, the women that I support in the refugees, they have to have legal status. Otherwise, there's no way their housing benefits will be, they'll be entitled to housing benefit in order to pay for their rent in the refugees. So they are not, so I don't support migrant women. However, I know what is being what they I know the discussion that is taking place currently and how they are going to be supported when that bill becomes enacted into law. So it was good that the Office of Domestic Abuse, they did not just like let go of what they actually wanted to see happen in in the definition of domestic abuse, but they kept still lobbying, and also of course voluntary agency and charity organization to ensure that these women, migrant women, are supported. So that is positive, and I just look forward to having to seeing it enacted into law.
I'm looking forward to that as well. So do you reorientate victims?
Yes, real in terms when it comes to reorientating victims, it's a form of empowering them because of the not self-belief, the self-doubt, the fact that they are not good enough parents. They don't see themselves that way, and it's because of the negativity that they've surrounded themselves with, or they were caught in for years, and they that has turned into belief. So they believe it, they believe the lies told to them. So it's actually reorientating them to what it's actually what is real, as opposed to what is false. And also some of them, because of the fear that's been s- told them, fear of deportation, fear that children's services will take their children away, fear that someone, their husband will just emerge from where they've fled domestic abuse and take away their child or their children. I remember one mom that had to convince, I actually had to convince her to see the possibility. This was a woman who moved from one part of the country to London, and she had never even been to London before, and she was so fearful of even going out to even go to the GP or come and see me for an appointment. She was so fearful that her husband or husband family might just turn up and take, a child away from her. So I had to sit her down and say, what is the possibility of what you are thinking and almost believing? What is the possibility of it happening? And it was so remote. The possibility was so slim. So it's reorientating them, letting them know what is false, from what is true, almost like convincing them, helping them to have this belief and all the myth that they believe to eliminate it, to say no, that is not possible. It's not going to happen. This is the real thing. They've told you lies and you believe it for years, but that is not, that is, it should not be your reality. So that's where the orientation comes in, and that is done through listening visits, visiting them as often as possible. And with some of these, you still have to refer them to counseling, because that then will help to consolidate whatever discussion that we I have had with them. It's with some of them it would be an ongoing work, so that when they're alone by themselves and the negative thought comes to them that, oh, someone is going to come and take your child away, you are no good, then they should be able to then tell the critical voice that no, it isn't true, it is a lie, and giving them that too. So it's a lot of work. It just depends on the severity of the abuse, how long they've experienced it, and how empowered they are even before the abuse. Because some of them, like as I said, they're even new in the country, some perhaps 2 years, and some cannot even speak English. So it's like, where do they start from? But they can start from somewhere, taking the baby step and eventually getting to their destination, or to be able to function as an adult and to help themselves and their child or their children.
Yes. It's so, in a nutshell, it's a journey. It's a
It is
process.
a journey. It is a journey, yes. And sometimes the journey can be so overwhelming. And when I have good conversation with some of them, they have so many things on their list. So then I'll sit them that what is practical, what can be done now, because when you look at this huge list, you can't do it within the time frame that you're thinking you should be able to finish it. So just one day at a time. What is practical now? Okay, let's focus on what is practical. What we cannot deal with. Say, for example, some are in the refuge, they're thinking, oh, where will they rehouse them? Will it be a good place? But you are in a good place right now. Enjoy the place with your child. There's no one shouting. It's like you have your freedom back. Enjoy the space, and then on your way to where you're going next. So it's reorientating them so that they can enjoy the journey. Otherwise, where they feel sad, and they're not, even though they're physically there with their child or children, but emotionally they are not available, because sadness is going to drain them of their joy. It's going to demotivate them. It would impact on their creativity. But they need all of this in order to support themselves, rebuild their life, to help with the recovery process, as well as their child or their children.
Kindly highlight how the role or issue has benefited you as a practitioner and to others as well.
Well, it has definitely made me to be more confident in myself, um, in the support that I provide to the client. In fact, in order for me to be more effective in my role, I went to do this course on counseling skills, so that I can be more effective, understand when they're sharing their stories, the listening skills. Not that in my profession we do listening skills, but I've been being taught by psychologists. It was just from a different angle because they see victims of domestic abuse anyway, and all the forms of abuse. We talked about depression, depressive symptoms, and they also talked about self-care. So it just gave me more confidence in my role, how I support the women, um, and also how I listen. Because sometimes you think you're listening, but you're already working out what your response will be. But to listen to the person and reflect back to them what you feel that you have heard, the empathy, being trauma aware.
So, what are your last words to victims of domestic abuse or any form of abuse?
Victims of domestic abuse, get help. Help is out there. You'll be amazed how many organizations are out there to support victims and survivors of domestic abuse. Do not suffer in silence. If you find yourself waking up and crying, being afraid, being trepidated, or just anxiety for no real cause, make sure you speak to someone. Definitely do not suffer in silence. Get help, not only for yourself, but also for your children. You've got to be aware that these children being raised in abusive relationship, they are imbibing what is going on and are absorbing it, and you don't want them to replicate the cycle of abuse. So definitely get help for yourself, and most importantly, get help for the young children, the next generation, and help to protect their minds, because we want them to have healthy minds. We do not want them to be suicidal. We do not want them to be filled with hopelessness. We want them to feel with hope. We want them to be filled with hope. We want them to know that life is worth living, and not to be filled with thoughts of hopelessness. So that would be my last word to victims of domestic abuse.